2, 1.
Wait, what are we doing?
With your hosts,
I'm Jenny.
and I'm Sabs.
We are two
Neurosparkly,
neurospicy best friends.
sharing our personal experiences, navigating life with our neurodiversities. Although our perspectives are from two biologically born women, our mission is to build an inclusive, safe space for everyone searching for some extra love, support, and resources.
We just want to be so clear to our listeners that our content is created for your entertainment and in no way should be taken as medical advice. We are just two girls sharing our personal life experience.
This
episode on
Wait, what are we doing? What is neurodiversity?
And what is ADHD?
But first, let's introduce ourselves.
I'm Jenny. I'm a 29-year-old hobby enthusiast. I love teaching myself new things I have absolutely no experience in, like painting, crafting, home DIY projects. Originally, I'm from Western New York. I moved to Colorado 4 months after meeting Savannah, who was then my husband's acquaintance from high school, but now we are all best friends, sharing the same roof, and pretty much have been for the last 4 years since I moved here. Although I am a nurse practitioner, which you will hear me touch on throughout the show, this podcast is in absolutely no way, shape, or form meant to serve as medical advice, and nothing I say should be taken as any form of medical diagnosing, consultation, or advice. If anything does resonate with you, though, please contact your primary care physician and see what they have to say. This is for entertainment purposes only and my personal experiences as Jenny, the dog-loving football fan who also has autism and an ADHD diagnosis. I wasn't diagnosed until much later on in my life, so you're basically watching my journey of self-discovery and understanding of my own neurodiversities in real time. So, let's do this!
I'm Sabs. I'm a almost 31-year-old ocean-obsessed, outdoor-loving, travel enthusiast who loves to learn and explore the big mysterious world of ours. When I'm not traveling exploring coral reefs with the fishies, I love to paint, do puzzles, and learn any and every DIY project I can. I pride myself on my ability to create deep, loving connections with people, and I want to normalize platonic intimacy. I believe your friendships can be the most influential relationships in your life. I'm originally from Rochester, New York. Then I lived in Key West, naturally, where I became one of the fishies and the sharks that you'll always hear me talk about, because that's what I info dump all the time. Until the Hurricane Irma evacuated me out of the island. I then made the long, treacherous drive to Colorado, where I've now been living for the last 7 years. Now I work as a massage therapist, and I live with my bestie in the basement, actively learning every day what it is like navigating this world as an adult with several mental and physical health disorders. I'll be focusing mostly on my ADHD and OCD diagnosis in this podcast, but you'll also hear me reference all my other stuff that goes on the day-to-day basis.
So, to get right into it then, what is neurodivergence? So, neurodiversity describes the idea that people experience and interact with the world around them in many different ways. There's no right way of thinking, learning, and behaving, and the differences are not viewed as deficits. This source is not from me, it is from Harvard Health. Some examples of neurodiversity are ADHD, dyslexia, autism, OCD, and Tourette's. And just in those diagnoses right there, we have, just sitting between the two of us, ADHD, dyslexia, autism, and OCD.
I feel like they all end up kind of going hand in hand.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess what is ADHD specifically then? It's a medical condition marked by differences in the brain activity and function compared with others who don't have the same disorder. The results can be a lifelong struggle to pay attention. That source is also from Harvard Health. Basically what I get from that is everyone who has ADHD is neurodivergent, but not everyone who is neurodivergent has ADHD.
That makes sense. So many people may not fully understand neurodiversity. Can you shed some light on how it influences your life?
Yeah.
That's a very loaded question.
Very
I know
loaded
that.
question. To me, it looks like so many different things, and I feel like I'm still trying to figure out a lot of what that is. It can be having a conversation with someone while I'm talking and completely spacing out and forgetting what we're talking about. I'm sure you'll see me a bunch of times go, wait, what are we even talking about?
Oh, you mean like how we decided to name this podcast? Wait, what are we doing?
Sometimes I can think about wanting ice cream, and it could take me, 2 hours to get up and go get my ice cream. It's needing a pair of headphones when I go to the grocery store, or panicking at social events if I don't have alcohol in my hand. It's struggling to work at a company or for someone else because I just get so bored. Monotony kills me inside. Impulsive, constant need to be experiencing something new, something fun or exciting. I never like going back to the same restaurants. I never like ordering the same thing off the same menu, which I think is unique to me specifically, because I'm not sure that most people with ADHD, I feel like they have a lot of like comfort foods.
I was gonna say I'm the exact opposite of that.
Yeah, which a lot of people, they'll go to the restaurant and they'll just order the same thing. Like, oh, I know the chicken salad's really good, I'm just gonna get the chicken salad. Where I'm like, ooh, I know the rabbit gnocchi is delicious, but like,
I need to try.
yeah, what's the bison ragu about?
Ooh. Okay,
So
well,
I'm
I
like,
really want that.
yeah, we should go sometime.
Yes, please.
I've been told that I ask too many questions, or I think I take things too literal from, not even just school people. I am just somebody who needs very, very clear communication. And I think that's why I've struggled in school and working for other people, because I just need things a certain way and do things a certain way. When I was younger and I was not diagnosed yet, it was struggling in school because I feel like everyone was telling me I wasn't reaching my potential, I wasn't applying myself, and I don't genuinely feel like I wasn't doing those things. I was very much applying myself, and if you check my scores, I used to do very well in school. I just think over time,
you just weren't doing it the way they wanted you to do it.
Yes. I get really good at things really fast, and then I get really bored of it because I'm like, oh, I'm good at this. Okay, toss it to the side. I hyperfixate on things that I want to learn, so I might struggle to focus in school, but I hyperfixate on, say, Google Maps. It could be 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm in a coffee shop in Japan, and I don't even drink coffee. Or, just me and you sitting in a conversation, and you're like, what are you doing on your phone? And I'm like, oh, I'm taking a virtual tour through a garden in Thailand right now.
I love your Google Maps. It's my favorite.
It's struggling to do a task alone, but having no problem doing it when there's someone else in my room. But then also, I struggle when someone else is in my room because I can't stay focused because now there's someone there to distract me. So I feel like I am just a walking oxymoron. I contradict myself constantly. I love live music, but I hate going to the shows and being in crowds. I love food, but I hate cooking and cleaning. Have you ever just been eating eggs and the eggs become too eggy and you're like, ugh?
Yes.
Ugh.
I can't.
I think having ADHD has given me a lot of autoimmune illnesses. I think I'm hyper aware of what's going on in my body, and it stressed me out so much. Having such an overactive immune system has quite literally manifested as making me viscerally ill.
Oh, 100%. And that's something that we'll talk about a lot and we'll touch on a lot, is we didn't know or learn until we were in our late 20s.
How about you? If you could explain what it's like.
So, I was officially diagnosed with ADHD at age 26-ish, and then also what's called HSP, or highly sensitive person, which I had no clue what that was until my therapist diagnosed me with it. Shout out Amanda, she's the best. Basically, I have been actively learning about both of these diagnoses and how they've affected me over the past 4 years. And then I've been starting to connect the dots in my childhood and, teens, adolescence, into early adulthood. And I'm like, damn, there are so many signs that were missed that were actually ADHD, HSP, and more recently I've been diagnosed with autism as well.
For anyone who is listening that might not, including myself, know what HSP is, I know you said it's highly sensitive person disorder. Can you just dig into what that is a little bit more in depth?
Absolutely. Meaning, you pick up on emotions, you feel things more than others do. So,
physically in your body?
Physically in my
mentally
body.
in your brain as well?
Both.
Okay.
Physically and mentally. Meaning, when somebody is sad, when somebody is angry, when somebody is happy. I pick up those emotions, which I'm sure you being my friend, you living with me for the past 4 years, you know that about me.
Yes, of course.
As soon as someone's mood changes, as soon as I am in a room with a patient, as soon as anything around me picks up, even if I'm watching a movie, which I know happens to a lot of people, if someone's crying in a movie, you start crying. It's instant. I pick it up. I feel it as if it's my own.
And you're saying it's more intense than maybe the average movie watcher who is crying.
100%.
Okay.
And I, even saying this now and saying this out loud, I mean, clearly you and I haven't even talked about this much. And this, I was diagnosed with this like 2-3 years ago.
I remember when you were diagnosed with it, but we didn't discuss it much.
No, and it's because it's still so new to me that it's hard for me to even conceptualize still. And
2 years isn't a long time to have a diagnosis for something.
Right, absolutely.
I've been diagnosed ADHD for 2 years, and I'm, again, still learning and uncovering what that means to me.
100%. Growing up, too, I was always told that I'm an empath. Never really knowing what that meant. And when I brought that to my therapist and she told me about HSP, I was like, oh my goodness, this makes so much sense. More recently then, and when I say more recently, I mean like less than a month ago, she brought it up again and she was like, I want to circle back to when you asked me a few years ago if you were autistic. She was like, let's bring up those quizzes again. And we did some quizzes. It was very intensive, and sure enough, I'm definitely tested high in those quizzes, which felt honestly very validating for me. Does it change anything in my life? No, absolutely not. I'm still going to go on with my day-to-day life. I'm still a nurse practitioner. I'm still going to go on in my career. I'm still, going to do what I do. But it was very validating. And it was like, wow, I'm not crazy. I've told people in my life. They told me, no, you're fine. You're just lazy. Things that I've seen and noticed and things that I do, habits that I have in childhood and into adulthood are things like biting my nails, things like skin picking, any scab, any acne lesion. If it's on my skin, it's gone.
That's also big for me. I would attribute that to like almost stimming. Yep. And I would also say that I would tie that in with my OCD, because if I have a pimple right here, I'm not sure if you can see it, but it is taking everything in me not to pick that off my face right now. And pimple patches have helped, which I don't have one on for camera purposes, but I pick scabs as well. That's something that is like an intense urge for me that I sometimes feel I can't control.
Right. It's hard. It's really, really hard.
Definitely.
Growing up with a messy room and being told by your parents, you're lazy, you're gross, you're disgusting, instead of being taught, let's take you to the doctor. Maybe there is something wrong with you. Or, hey, let me teach you how to clean your room.
Were your parents clean people?
They were. Let me rephrase that, because my parents were separated or divorced, so I lived at 2 separate houses. My stepmom, I hesitate because my stepmom kept the house clean. My dad, I don't really know if he cleaned or not. It was really my stepmom. So my stepmom kept the house very, very clean. My mom, we actually had this conversation very recently. Sorry, Mom, but she kept the house a mess. And she's recently finding out in her 60s
she's ADHD as
that
well,
she is
right?
so ADHD.
Yeah. I could have guessed that.
Yeah, right? And we recently had this conversation. I'm like, Mom, don't take this the wrong way, but like, it's the messy bathroom, it's the messy kitchen, it's the kitchen table always being cluttered, it's, not being able to get rid of things. With having the messy rooms too, growing up, I remember getting this like Hulk energy, being like 10 years old, getting this massive energy to just move around my furniture. I would come home from school and I'd be like, I have this energy to move my bed around, my dressers, my everything by myself, and just because I needed to change the space. Now, growing up, watching TikToks, seeing people on the internet, reading articles, like seeing that this is a trait of ADHD, this is a trait of neurodiversity. I didn't realize that growing up. No one knew this.
I didn't either. Is that why I just had a breakdown the other day and you came downstairs yesterday
Yes.
morning and my entire apartment was moved around?
Yes, exactly.
I do feel like that helps create a healthy flow space though. Like I don't know if that's
It does. It's also like, the flow space, the feng shui.
I believe heavily in feng shui.
I do as well. Absolutely.
If that is what people would call a negative trait of ADHD, nay.
The biggest thing I've realized what neurodiversity has looked like for me is looking completely normal on the outside, having a highly respected career in the community, and no one takes you seriously when you tell them you have ADHD, when you tell them you have autism, when you tell them you have mental illness. Because how can you be so successful? You don't have ADHD. You don't have autism. Look at you. You have this beautiful house. You're so successful. You can't have all these mental illnesses. Like, what? I just don't understand that. Just because, and honestly, the only reason I have all of these things is because people told me I had to have these things. So I worked my ass off to make sure I had these things because it was normal
like
in
the
society.
house and the job and going to the good school and
yes, exactly.
So you followed everyone else had the normal life path laid out for you.
Mm-hmm. The societal norm, correct? Yeah, I followed the societal norm because that's what I was told you had to do.
Right.
And here I am. I just did what I was told to do. And because I did that, when I brought it up to people, mental health professionals in the past, not Amanda, again, she's phenomenal, they never took me seriously. When I brought it up to my parents, they never took me seriously. And I still have trouble conceptualizing that. But now that I'm an adult, the best thing is I have control over it now.
I'm sorry no one took you seriously growing up. I do hope for your future kids growing up that with the more information that is out there and the knowledge that we have at our fingertips in today's day and age, that what happened to us doesn't happen to other kids, that they do get listened to and heard and made feel validated, because just because you're successful doesn't mean that you didn't struggle to get there. And I struggled with that in massage school as well.
Absolutely.
I know you've heard me tell this story, but there was a time that on an exam I argued and yelled at my teacher that he gave me too high of a score for a midterm.
Wait, I actually don't remember this story.
Yeah, you've met my teacher, Nick.
Mm-hmm.
He gave me, I believe, a 97 or something like that on one of my midterms, and I yelled at him that it was too high of a score because I felt I didn't follow proper instructions, and that he was just giving me that because he, felt bad for me. Because, I mean, there wasn't really...
Oh my heart.
Right, well, because all going through younger school and, middle school and elementary school, I did really well until I didn't. And then when I wasn't, getting the grades and things got harder and around 6th grade, I started getting looked at as the rebellious kid.
Mm-hmm.
So massage school was really the first time in my more, post-teen life that I actually did well in school and I felt like a fraud. I suffered with imposter syndrome a lot, and he pulled me aside after class and basically sat me down and was like, okay, has anyone ever mentioned that you might have imposter syndrome? This is what it looks like. And he was like, I want you to know that I gave you the grade based off of your score as a student.
Nick.
He's awesome. He was like, you are not a professional massage therapist. If I was grading a professional massage therapist, the grade would have been different. He's like, I'm grading you as a student on what you have learned up to this point. And up to this point, you understand over 95% of what you have been given. And I said, oh.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a perfect segue into our next topic, too, is do you feel ADHD is a learning disability?
I feel ADHD is a learning disability. I think if you were to ask me this question back in 2007 when I was in middle school, I would have said yes because of what all the adults around me made me believe about myself. At that time as a child, I did feel different from my peers. And even now as an adult, I do feel different from my peers. But as an adult with ADHD, with my experience, no, I don't believe it's a disability. I just think to learn differently than other peers. I guess like the definition would suggest like I just learn differently than my other peers. I personally learn better with visuals, pictures, video, sounds, hand-on. I learn really well from other people's stories. So if you've ever heard someone say, learn from others' mistakes. Like I, in my adult life, have gotten really good at learning from other people's mistakes. I just learn better from experience.
And your own mistakes.
And yes, in my own mistakes. I read something the other day that said people with ADHD can process word and sound at about 3 times the rate as the normal person. So if you have...
As you're saying that, it's taking me so long to process what you're saying right now.
Right, that's why I said words and sound.
Yes.
Yes. So basically if we were reading like along a book and there's audio playing and it's reading the book for us, we can speed it up and we can process that at about a rate 3 times faster than the average person. So we can download information faster than other people. And I'm not saying that that's all people, again, I'm not saying that's everyone with ADHD, but I do resonate with that for myself.
You do. You watch YouTube videos at like 2 times the speed.
And I listen to podcasts at like 1.5 the speed, and hearing it at such a faster rate helps me stay focused. Where I think that's where I struggled in school is, sorry teachers, they were just too slow. And I felt everyone around me was too slow, and I think that's why I did really well in summer school, because summer school was basically like accelerated. So while everyone else was in school for 6 months doing their daily classes, I would go to those same classes and do it accelerated in a 6-week period. And as into me looking rebellious as a kid, I figured out a way for me to go to school was to get in trouble a lot, and then I got sent to summer school and detention and ISS, so I could do everything at a faster rate than everybody else, because they'd sit in school for 8 hours, I would get all my stuff done in 3 hours, and then I would go home for the day. On the outside looking in, yeah, I would look rebellious, but in hindsight, I probably should have just been in accelerated classes where you were learning at a faster rate.
Exactly.
Because I struggle very hard to read stuff off a board. But if it's on a board and I can speed it up, that's the ticket for me.
Yeah. I feel like you could have done really good in school nowadays with the technology that we have. Like when we were in middle school and high school, we didn't have the technology that... God, I sound so old, but seriously though.
Well, I mean, I'm older than Google, so you're not wrong.
We are older than Google,
and I hate saying that out loud.
It's true though. It's weird, but it's true.
Yeah, so no, I completely agree. I mean, you have things like apps like Speechify that you can read whatever you want and it processes it for you. You have the ability to speed things up. I didn't have that in school. You know, if I had a pre-recorded lecture and I could have sped that up in school, I probably would have graduated by the time I was like 14. I'm not even kidding.
Oh, for sure.
I think if you put me and my learning style in a normalized, like standardized room, yes, I'm gonna look like I have disability, but no, if you take me out of that learning environment and you would put me into an environment where I can use my creativity, I can use my hands, I can ask questions and use my understanding without slowing everybody else down, I don't feel it would be as much as a disability.
I love that. I completely agree. I always felt like learning in school was so much harder for me because the same thing, I got bored way too easily during classes, during lectures. I also remember the first time that someone called me out on that I might be slower than the average person or maybe a little bit different. I was working at Tim Hortons, which is a little coffee shop, which if you're from Canada or Western New York, you definitely know what I'm talking about.
Shout out Tim Hortons. We love Tim Hortons.
The best.
Farmhouse wrap.
So, I was working at Tim Hortons and I would always mix up the numbers when the people came to the drive-thru. I'd be like, okay, your order is 606. And they come up to the drive-thru and the girl would be like, dude, their order is 909. And I'm like, oh shit. And she's like, girl, I think you might be dyslexic, because it would happen over and over and over again. And then I started realizing, like, wow, this happens in my day-to-day life. And I never realized it until someone finally called me out on it. So I do feel like dyslexia is, of course, definitely a learning disability. But in regards to ADHD, I'm definitely with you that I just think differently. I learn differently. I need visuals. I need different forms of communication. I need to see it. I need to hear it. I need to feel it. I need so many different ways. It's reading a book and having to read the same paragraph 4 times. Or reading a book and then needing to draw what is written in order to understand it.
I think that's a really great way to even maybe notice that you have some type of ADHD in childhood, because that was huge for me. I would doodle along all my notes in school as a kid.
Absolutely.
And I was constantly getting in trouble for doodling or scribbling. But that is what I was doing, you know. I would draw a little picture to help me remember what the paragraph was about, or to summarize the paragraph or something like that, because it didn't help me to just read. I never could read and then comprehend things.
Right. Yeah, it's hard. And I think that's the main thing. No, I don't think it's a learning disability, but when every single neurotypical person is comparing you to other neurotypicals, yeah, it makes life and navigating life 1,000 times harder.
When everything is set up for people who are good at, you know,
the norm.
the norm.
With all that said, do you think having ADHD has made you smarter in any way?
Ooh. Yes and no. Let me explain. No, I don't think my ADHD has made me smarter, but I think it has made me face myself more than the average person. And I think ADHD has made a lot of things more challenging for me, because I have to navigate a neurotypical world. Because being ADHD offers you a unique perspective to the neurotypical. That's just what I have. I think I just have a unique perspective where I have done a lot of self-reflection, and my ADHD has forced me to take a look at myself and how to better navigate the world around me, because of the fact that I feel like where most people would start their day at, like, let's say 0, I feel like I start my day at like -20.
Oh, same.
And I think that in itself is a challenge, where I have to start every day, you know, just waking up and doing the things that maybe not everybody else would have to do. Like, I'm sure they just get up, you know, brush their teeth and make their breakfast and make their coffee and get ready for the day and go to work, where I'm not. I have to have a list, and then I have to go to brush my teeth, and then I have to mark that off my list, and then I have to make my bed, and I mark that off my list. And you know, if I leave my house and my bed isn't made, I get extreme anxiety. And if I am out at an event and I realize, oh my God, my bed's not made, I get a lot just internal, like, anxiousness. And a lot of that, I would say, comes from my OCD. But then also the fact that I can't just simply enjoy what's in front of me, because I have ADHD and my brain is in a million places all at once. So I'll be sitting here having a conversation out at, like, let's say, corporate event for one of my friends, and I'm in the middle of talking to someone, and I'll be mid-sentence and I'm like, did I make my bed? And then I'll just start getting anxiety. So for me, I have to literally get up in the morning and go through my little steps all day just to be able to stay on track, get to where I need to go, make sure that I'm regulating my self-care, my food intake, what I'm consuming visually, because I mean, what you consume, you are. So if I'm consuming a bunch of negativity on, you know, social media apps or on TV that I'm watching, so I just have to be a lot more conscious, I think, than the average person, if I want to be able to fit in to this society. And I hate saying that, because I don't want to fit into this society. Fuck this society.
Seriously.
Respectfully. I want to have, like, my own little pocket of society that I feel comfortable in, and I just don't feel like I would get there if I wasn't as self-reflective and conscious about every single thing that I'm doing. And that comes, like I said at the beginning of the episode, where it's an oxymoron. I want to sit here and say I want to regulate my overactive nervous system, but then I have to stress myself out just to learn how to regulate it. And I think that's maybe in a nutshell what ADHD is. You're just constantly overcompensating and balancing back and forth, trying to juggle just everything.
Seriously.
So, while I have said that, ADHD has, I can consume knowledge, like, I can consume information and education so quickly, and I can learn very fast if I can put myself into that mental state. Sometimes I can't even get there. So, I'd say a lot of it is, like, almost like an addict where I binge educate and then I binge do things, and that is a pattern I've been working on breaking. So I don't think necessarily that ADHD or neurodiversity has made me smarter. I just think I've had a lot of obstacles and challenges to overcome, and in turn, the self-reflection has made me smarter.
I honestly have nothing to add to that, and that was beautifully put.
Thank you.
Of course. Actually, though, the only thing I do have to add to that is something for our beautiful listeners, is you mentioned a lot about your lists and social media and kind of how toxic it can be. For our beautiful listeners, we do have...
Oh, our free spring cleaning list.
Thank you!
That we're offering. We'll link it below. It has our social media cleanse. This gives you an opportunity to kind of look at your social media and seeing what you're consuming and help you clean it up. There's also one for your physical space around you. So a self-help ADHD list to make sure that you're checking in with yourself.
And the last one, there's actually 4. The last one is a habit tracker.
So if you're someone who struggles with making lists, keeping habits, or staying tidy and clean, don't know really where to start, take a look at our link below for our freebies for the month.
All right, well, that was fun. Let's do this again next week.
That was fun. I would love to do this again next week. Join us next Sunday with some tea and a cozy listening spot while we talk about my birthday. So we're going to be talking about people with mental health issues and neurodiversities feel around birthdays and how that can be anxiety inducing or feel really exciting and new. So join us next week when we talk about birthdays.
We appreciate you listening and can't wait to connect with you all.
Don't forget to comment and subscribe so you can join us every Sunday with some tea and a cozy place to listen.
This is Wait, What Are We Doing? With Jenny and Sabs.
Love you, besties!